nation-states uncertain and conflicted. At the same time, figures of the forbidden and the dangerous his others fascinate, intrigue, and lure and provoke him. That desire runs through the self's relation to its emergent others, as does a tortured ambivalence, destabilizing the citizen's identity and that of his republic. I think I have probably exhausted you to this point, and we can stop now and discuss what we've done, because I think there's a link here to what I want to discuss later. So I think we could do that.
Right, we can pause, we can pause for discussion now. And then we can take a break, and then we'll continue to the second session. I think everyone is so concentrated on your talk, and but I know we need to take a break. We need to pause and maybe discuss the previous section. Let's share, just take some time to think and reflect, and share some questions or comments, right? So that
the break first, and then the discussion.
No, a discussion first, and then the break, and then you can continue the next section. Now let's wait for the students. I believe they have a lot to say, but they need some time. Maybe just briefly share with you students' background. We have students from Vietnam, Indonesia, Elizabeth, where are you? Where are you from?
From Austria.
Austria. Okay. Yeah, Kasia from Poland, Olengani from South Africa, and your name? I'm sorry. Zhang Xing from China. Okay. Student from Taiwan, and Bai from Korea. Isabel from Hong Kong.
No, Crystal from Hong Kong.
Crystal from Hong Kong. And I just don't have my name list here. From China. 对，我记得那个名字会让我以为是okay, anyway,
From Vietnam.
okay, from Vietnam. It's best teacher. Okay, Hong Kong, your Malaysia, China, and New York plus Cambridge.
But yeah, Boston.
About it, yeah, right. Every Taiwan. So I believe every student has their own concern about this citizenship issue that is taken as an instrument, as you said, as a means for exclusion, not only for foreigners but for local people. They differentiate. They have their ID card, even if they have the same citizenship card, but they have their other identification, so that they are forbidden to move from place to place, or they are forbidden or excluded to have property, or to invest, or to do other things, or even to participate politically, right, in their own society. Then, of course, we talk about all these migrant workers, refugee, or stateless person who live there, but they cannot participate. They cannot really have their right to decide how the city is going to be shaped. So they have no right to participate. So this is this citizenship concept is actually a very tricky issue. It protects people, but only protect the people, as you said, of the same kind. But how to decide the same kind, right? According to the immigrant or migrant during particular historical period of time, right? Or their origin, or their race. This is arbitrarily fabricated notion of race, actually, and also their maybe religion, right? So during this change of the regime, people also discuss. They suddenly lost their identity, their citizenship status, and they became outsiders within the same community, even though they were, for example, in Taiwan, they were all Japanese, but then they were non-Japanese, but they are non-Chinese, and so on. So I believe you have all your examples. Hong Kong, why are people suppressed so violently, fiercely by their government, right? Because when they demand a more democratic process within the society. Okay, why is China the Uyghur people forced in the concentration camp, being educated and shaped into a different mode of people? Could they? Okay, they would need to renounce their religion. But similar things happening throughout different parts of the world. So anyone wants to share a little bit of your observation or thoughts for the first half? So that Professor Smith-Rosenberg knows how to proceed. Okay, just give us some feedback. If you don't speak up, I'll call on you. Lungani? No. This is just here. Where they stand. So that you have a better feeling for you to continue next hour. Lungani?
You mentioned something about the Enlightenment. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Pass around the second map. They just need some time to do that.
Oh, okay. Then on page 5, you said human rights and citizenship are twin offsprings of enlightenment. Page 5.
Our page 5, you need to use our version, which is condensed. No, here.
So on page 5, the 5th line from the top. So it says, yet citizenship and human rights are twin offsprings of the Enlightenment. So my question is, if Enlightenment is, as like Immanuel Kant said, it's mankind, man's emergence from his own immaturity. So why didn't the Enlightenment foresee what is to come, like the stage we're in today?
I couldn't quite hear everything you said. Did you hear me?
The question of enlightenment.
Yes.
Right? You want to just
Should I? Okay.
Repeat the question.
So my question is, enlightenment is thought of as this, it's an intellectual movement and philosophical movement that brought reason and science to mankind. And Immanuel Kant said that enlightenment is man's emergence from his own self-imposed immaturity. So if, as you said on page 5, that human rights and citizenship are twin offsprings of enlightenment.
Yes.
So why didn't enlightenment foresee what was to come, that's the stage we're in today?
Well, I'm not sure, and I will guess. I mean, I don't have any answers. Let me first say what I was going to say before, is that I am a historian, and historians look at what's past, so I can tell you what was sort of happening on the ground. So this is not just an intellectual movement, but it's a social movement and a political movement. I can discuss that. Political theory, I'm relatively new to come to, so I'm really interested in feedback to these ideas, because I don't feel that I'm the authority. I think this is a collective discussion, so I just wanted to say that. I think my reading of liberals is that they were inventing as they went along. And they didn't see at first, the moderates were very afraid of disorder. They were afraid of their intellectual movement getting out of control, and people like the mobs in Paris, or there were mobs in Philadelphia too, or the slaves in Haiti, just going too far. So I think people were thinking, and these are evolving ideas. I'm not sure if I'm really addressing your thing. And there was always differences. There was, in Saint-Domingue, in the French plantation colony of Saint-Domingue, yes, there is some belief that when they saw the French Revolution, some of them participated in the U.S. Revolution. They were brought up as slaves, etc., by the French or by French planters who were then aiding the United States in its revolution against England. There's not a rigid logic that's going on here on the part of nation states. So at one point, the French absolute monarchy was associated with the rebels in Philadelphia and Boston and Western Massachusetts. Or the dangerous people were in Western Massachusetts, not so much in Boston. But anyway, there was so they knew that there were revolutions going on, but you wouldn't say the Haitian Revolution was a result of, it's not just a copy of what's happening in France, quite the contrary. It's bringing its own experience into it. So the moderates were right to be afraid, because groups were going far beyond what the intellectuals anticipated they would do. For instance, in Western Massachusetts and in Western Carolinas during the U.S. Revolution, the people, the small farmers, poor farmers, were a phrase we have in English, hard scrabble farmers. That they scrabbled to bring something out of the earth, the rocky earth of New England. They said, okay, the British have violated the social contract, the Lockean social contract, and we have thrown the bastards out, and we are now without a state. We're in a state of statelessness, and we now have the power to create a new state. And we don't want the elite of Boston to tell us what this new Constitution of Massachusetts should be. And so they marched into courthouses with their muskets, and they closed down the court system, and they said, nobody's going to rule us. We're going to rule through town meetings in which everybody can be present and everyone has a vote. And this is not what John Adams had intended at all. And so revolutions, certainly the sans-culottes took over the streets of Paris and pushed in certain directions. So this is both an intellectual movement and it's also a social political movement, I think, in all of these different locales. In Ireland, the same, where you get, dirt poor potato farmers who are Catholics pushing elite urban Protestants who wanted, some home rule, pushing them further and further in the direction of freedom. So there's always a struggle between the intellectuals, but some intellectuals are going to push even further, like Tom Paine was really quite remarkable. And if you're interested in this, I can show you something else. But we won't go into it now. I don't know if that was an answer to your question.
Yes, I think you covered quite the bulk of it, because I have this class in the evenings, it's about enlightenment, and so I was really struggling to understand if how is it that they fail to see what is going to come, if like if the Enlightenment was really like about reason and like and science, so how is it that they fail to see? I mean, it's the same kind of question as like, how did the economists fail to see the crash that was coming in America 2008? And
Do you have your own answer to that? Why did it fail, and what's the enlightenment or emancipation for today? For example, Carroll mentioned, for all those people who did not have the right, that will include women, right, or slaves, or gender different people. Right? So for those people who were not imagined or were not envisioned to require or acquire a right, how do today's emancipation or enlightenment, or we can say disenchantment or decolonization project in terms of epidemic decolonization, to further we expand the right to those people who were not acknowledged, right, like foreigners, alien, or status person, whether they are still excluded from the foundation to share. So I think you should push forward. Those people in the 18th century, their reason has their own logic. The logic is based on their own episteme and all the social fabric. They have their own limit. So, but the basic maybe motor there was to envision the force to break through or to break through the previous enchantment. Either it's religious or it's other conventional form, or and so on, to arrive at something they think will be revolutionary. But for different historical moments, there are different sedimentations of all these institutions, historical processes that will constitute different unequal circumstances. So we need to rethink again and again. That's what Carroll was saying.
I mean,
But,
the elite of Boston were very upset by the Western Massachusetts farmers refusing to pay their taxes, for example. Or much more seriously, when people like Thomas Jefferson saw the Haitian Revolution, they were terrified. This isn't what they meant to talk. I mean, there's that line in Prufrock, Eliot's poem, Prufrock, in which he says, "This is not what I meant to talk." And I always think of Thomas Jefferson looking at the Haitian Revolution and saying, "This is not what I meant by all men." So it's revolution goes beyond, and then there's always an attempt to roll it back, a backlash. And the question is, how far will it get rolled back? And that's a question about power.
Thank you. Carroll, I start from a sentence that you mentioned. You said those democracies that we can be so proud of. I would doubt very much that we can be proud of those democracies. You know, for many of the reasons that you mentioned yourself, because they were failed, because they were not true to the first impulse and the first ideas. But then we need to question some of our concepts, or else we need to have also epistemological interrogation. I had the feeling that you don't at all doubt the framework of the nation state. The nation state, which is actually a national state with all that it implies as a framework. You don't doubt at all liberalism as a given framework. Now, of course, citizenship would go along with the national state, whereas human rights would go along with something transnational, which is maybe something we can see coming, which maybe some people have been calling for. But in any case, I have the feeling that we have to question those concepts, because so far we have historical evidence of the failure of liberalism and of the failure of the so-called democracy. We have to analyze why and to see from there where to go further. I believe that the young people here are interested in what will come next. What is coming next? The question which we just had came from
What
them.
can come next? What are you proposing? What are the class proposing that would come next? Because this is, historians are always looking backwards, I think, as Benjamin said. We look back over our shoulders constantly. It's hard for us to imagine on beyond. I do not feel an emotional commitment to the nation state. I'm a very disorderly person at heart, and therefore this is not my goal to reestablish order at all. But I'm not sure how you would protect rights, or how you would structure a post-nation governance, and who would protect rights, who would guarantee rights. At the same time, I absolutely agree with you. The system we have now denies rights to far, far more people than it gives rights to. It only looks good to those of us who are among the privileged few. So I agree with you. I don't know how to go there. What have you been, in your class, what has the class been discussing?
Maybe after go around, we get hear more from students.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carroll, for the fantastic and very thought-provoking talk. At the beginning of your paper, you see that our modern republic, of what we see as, what we envision as a modern republic today, has been influenced primarily by the revolution of the Enlightenment period, British, French, and very importantly the Haitian, and also the Latin American revolutions of the 19th century. And I was wondering how come that there are at least three very important revolutionary movements in the 20th century that have left a very heavy imprint on the way we understand today some human rights, workers' rights, social rights, women's rights, the rights to self-determination of the colonized people of Africa and Asia, not only Latin America. And those three revolutions, which have left a very heavy imprint on the understanding of rights, are the Mexican one, the Soviet one, and the Chinese one. Mm-hmm. Now, you may well say those three have blatantly betrayed their ideals. But is this not also the case of the revolutions of the Enlightenment? So if the difference is in the betrayal of the ideals, I would say that now we see that both cycles of revolutions, the 19th century and the 20th century, have betrayed their ideals. And it's difficult to say which betrayed the ideals more. And I am reminded, Radha will tell me who's the author, but of a nice observation. I think it's from an Italian philosopher, sociologist, about who compared revolutions and the post-revolutionary establishment respectively to falling in love and married life. Falling in love opens your heart, you fly high, but then you have to land, and it boils down to prosaic management.
Yes.
And this is where the revolutions are betrayed.
So what should we take from the 20th century revolutions? What's sort of the next step then, Goran?
I don't know.
Let's hear some from some students, all right?
Yes.
The next step, I think, needs to take into account that needs to build on freedoms and also on the idea of equality. The idea is individual freedom brought forward by the Enlightenment period is devalued and devoid of its meaning, and especially in implementation when it is detached from the idea of economic opportunity and equality. And with the level of inequalities that we have in place in the world today, that the 500 richest people have more than, 80% of the world's wealth, makes the liberal ideas of individual freedoms a little bit devoid of their sense. So I think we need to build on both.
Before we move on, no, I want to hear more, just a comment from students before we take a break, all right?
Let's come back to that.
Do you have any comment? If you don't, then we can move on, okay?
Thank you, Professor, about your lecture today. I have a question about the revolution, and I thought I was just thinking about the.
Oh, so I can hear you better. I'm an old lady.
Yeah, it's just, no, that's okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was just thinking about the revolution, about the rights and grace. But I think the revolution in the rights always makes lots of people can get rights in the country, but also it removes a rise of group of people in the country. For example, in the revolution in Vietnam, they make the farmer get a right of the country, but removes the right of the bourgeois, the landlord, and the rich farmers, and they have no rights in the country. And I want to divide the difference between the nationality and citizenship, because it's very different. And another question is, why in the country the discrimination among the citizens have existed? This is a nice. Okay.
That's okay. Carroll? We don't need to answer. Just hear what students comment, and then we take a break, and then you continue. All right. Anyone else who has Maria or Elizabeth? Do you have a comment or question or examples, briefly?
I just want to say something about citizenship.
Yeah.
An example or what I've seen in the trial when I was in Vienna. I've seen a group of kids, like maybe 11, 12 years old, and they all had migration background. And they were, so one of them was like, oh, today I got my passport. And then all of the others, they were all talking about which status they have, and they were so proud of it, and they were all talking in German about it, and they felt, I think they really felt more accepted in our country. And I was looking at them and thinking like, yeah, I never thought about that before, because I never had to leave, like to move somewhere, to escape to another country, to build up a new life. And for me it's so easy going everywhere. I just ask for a visa.